Welcome. In this video, I want to highlight a very important topic, and that is the 5 different ways that your retirement plan could change with the loss of a spouse or partner. A survivor scenario is a very difficult thing to plan for. It's something that you probably don't want to think about, but when it comes to retirement decumulation planning, it is extremely important to know what happens in a survivor scenario. We want to know what happens if your spouse or partner were to pass away earlier on in retirement, because there are a number of large impacts that will happen to your retirement plan, and it could dramatically change the success of your retirement plan if that were to happen. So let's take a look at the 5 different ways that your retirement plan could change in a survivor scenario. The first big impact in a survivor scenario is government benefits. There are going to be some dramatic changes in government benefits in a survivor scenario. Now, the first one is that unfortunately, old age security does not have a survivor benefit. It's going to go from a large amount to 0. Unfortunately, there is no survivor benefit there, so it's going to be a big impact all by itself. Now, the second one is Canada Pension Plan, CPP. There is a survivor benefit for Canada Pension Plan, but due to the integration with your existing CPP benefits, or the cap on CPP benefits, or the reduction on CPP survivor benefits, it could be quite a bit lower than what you're expecting. So again, take a look at our previous video on how CPP survivor benefit is calculated and why it might be a lot lower than what you expect. But when it comes to a survivor scenario, Canada Pension Plan reduction and old age security reduction, there's no survivor benefit, can have a very big impact all by itself. Now, the second big impact that we see in a survivor scenario is when there's a defined benefit pension, a DB pension. Now, a DB pension often has a survivor amount of 50 to 60% of the original defined benefit pension. You can sometimes choose to increase this up to 100%, but that typically comes with a small reduction in the lifetime pension amount. Now, this might be a good choice if the defined benefit pension is extremely large. A 40% reduction in the DB pension in a survivor scenario can sometimes have a huge impact on a retirement plan. And I'll show you an example of what that looks like. So if you have the option, you want to be thinking about what sort of survivor percentage I should be choosing as I start my DB pension. Now, the third big impact is the loss of income splitting. So in a survivor scenario, one of the big impacts that people don't realize is that you lose the ability, of course, to split income with a partner. This means if you have a lot of RSP RIF assets, LIRA LIF assets, a defined contribution pension plan, pension income, CPP old age security, any of that taxable income, you have now all within one person. So losing the ability to split income in retirement means a lot of additional income tax for the surviving partner. It can sometimes even mean the loss of old age security for them as well. So not only have they lost their deceased partner's old age security amount because there's no survivor benefit, but they've also lost some or all of their old age security as well, just because they're getting so much RIF, LIF income in retirement, pension income, that it's crossing into old age security clawback. So we want to think about RSP meltdowns. We want to think about reducing the amount of registered income if that's a risk in mid or late retirement. So again, the loss of income splitting in a survivor scenario can have a really big impact on the amount of tax or government benefit clawbacks that you might experience. Now, the fourth big change in a survivor scenario is that you're going to see all of the accounts roll over to the survivor if they've been designated as the successor holder or beneficiary. So for example, a TFSA account, a RIF account, you're typically going to have a spouse and partner. You're going to have them as the successor holder on those accounts. That means that the account rolls over to the survivor, and they don't need additional RSP or TFSA contribution room. So that rollover is extremely important. We don't want any of that income to be taxed. We want that all to roll over to the survivor, especially with TFSAs. That's a huge benefit in retirement. So we want that TFSA to continue to grow. Now, there's one more nuance there that I'll show you. Let's take a look at an example here. Now, the fifth big impact, and this isn't to everybody, but if you do have an insurance policy, like a longer term or T85 or T100, or maybe a whole life policy, you'll see the payout of that insurance policy if you are the beneficiary. So if you have a partner who's passed away unexpectedly and you are the beneficiary on that life insurance, then you will see the payout from that life insurance. Now, sometimes what can happen is that that amount might be less than you expect because, of course, the purchasing power of that goes down over time. So we'll take a look at an example where we have a $50,000 whole life policy, but unfortunately, as we move forward in time, the purchasing power of that $50,000 is going down. So even though it's $50,000 today, the actual payout in future dollars and purchasing power is going to be less than that. So let's take a look. So in this example, we have Sam and Louise. And if you watched our previous RSP meltdown video, you'll be familiar with this one. We were melting down their RSP, and I'll put a link in the description for this video if you want to watch that entire case study. Now, in this case, we've got Sam and Louise. We're going to be looking at a scenario where Sam is passing away, so has a shorter life expectancy, so passes away at the age of 75. So I've activated this AI strategy that's automatically going to do a number of calculations for us. So here we've got a CPP reduction, we've got an OAS reduction, but let's take a look in the table at what that exactly looks like. So for Sam here, we've got a CPP amount, and this is in future dollars, but it's $29,000. They've chosen to delay until age 70, so it's much larger than the age 65 maximum. And of course, with inflation, it's going up as well. Same with old age security, so they've chosen delay until age 70, so much larger amount. And again, for OAS, there is no survivor benefit, so that goes from $14,000 down to nothing. And for CPP, there is a survivor benefit, but let's see what Luis ends up getting. So $29,000 turns into, for Luis, only about $7,300. So much less in terms of CPP survivor benefit than that typical 60% that you'd expect. And this is because it's being integrated with Luis's CPP pension as well. So again, OAS, old age security, no survivor benefit. And for CPP, even though there is a survivor benefit, it might be much lower than what you expect because of the reduction, the cap, and the integration with the survivor's CPP as well. So I want to show you how the DB pension gets reduced. In this case, I believe Sam has a pension here, it's $56,000, but Luis has only a 60% survivor benefit. So we see a large reduction in a survivor scenario. So we go down here to the table, we'll see the future dollars amount. We'll see Sam at age 75 is passing away, had a pension that was worth $68,000 per year. If we go over to Luis's income, we're going to see that CPP pension survivor amount getting reduced significantly. So it's only 60%. Now, if Sam and Luis had maybe 100% survivor option when they started their pension, that might have been something to consider just due to the sheer size of the reduction in a survivor scenario. So in today's dollars, it's going from 56,000 in with the full pension down to 33,600. So quite a large reduction. So again, before you start retirement, before you start your DB pension, think about what survivor pension amount makes sense given your specific situation. Now, when it comes to income splitting, Luis and Sam here have done a good job because they have melted down their RSP earlier in retirement. So even though they had 700,000 or so in registered assets, in a survivor scenario at age 75, they only have $200,000 or so of registered assets remaining. So that actually is going to help them quite a bit. If I go down here to their income, and let's close their income column so we can look at their marginal tax rates, we can see here that if we look at their marginal tax rates, they're in the 30% tax bracket before retirement. And now after, in a survivor scenario, due to the reductions in CPP, old age security, and pension, Luis is still in that sort of 30% tax bracket. So not a huge impact there, no additional OAS clawbacks, but that can be a big risk. If we hadn't melted down their RSP earlier in retirement, this could be a risk for them. They could have had potentially a lot more registered assets that would then be triggering minimum withdrawals all in Luis's name after those assets rolled over. Now let's take a look at the rollover of the accounts, and one little trick that I want to show you that you should be thinking about if your partner might be expected to pass away a little bit earlier. So let's go take a look. Again, this can be a difficult thing to talk about, but we want to highlight this as a potential opportunity. So here we can see for Sam and Luis, We can see the TFSA rolling over to Luis in the future. So Luis has been added as a successor holder on that TFSA account. Again, go through all of your accounts, make sure that a partner, if that's what you want to have, make sure that they are listed as the successor holder on the account and not a beneficiary. So here, Luis is the successor holder on the account, so it shifts over. But in this case, we had a poor health diagnosis for Sam. We knew that Sam was going to have a shorter life expectancy, and there's a strategic option here is that we want to use up any available TFSA contribution room before Sam passes away. And the reason is that although the account will roll over to the successor holder, any unused TFSA contribution room will not. So even though the account rolls over, any unused contribution room will not roll over. So what we wanted to do here was strategically use that TFSA contribution room before Sam actually passed away, so that when it rolls over to Luis has a larger account, a larger TFSA account. You might even choose to make a withdrawal, in this case from TFSA, from Luis's TFSA, just to make sure that Sam's TFSA is maximized. So again, very strategic, very specific, very difficult to think about during a difficult time, but these are some of the things that we want to be doing to really maximize a retirement plan in a survivor scenario. Now, the last thing I want to highlight is the insurance payout. So in this scenario, we've got Sam and Luis. We actually have a $50,000 whole life policy, but in today's dollars, at age 75, it's only going to be worth about 40 grand. So in future dollars, we have 50,000. That's great. But the purchasing power, of course, is not going up with inflation. So that whole life policy at age 75 in about 10 years time, the purchasing power is only going to be a little over $40,000. So again, we can see it down here in the table. If we go to Sam, and actually we're going to see it at Luis. So let's go over to Luis here. We're going to see that $50,000 payout life insurance benefit. Luis is the beneficiary on that whole life policy. But again, in purchasing power, it's only going to be $40,000. So something important to keep in mind is that even if you have a T85, T100 term life policy, whole life, universal, the payout that you might expect might be a little bit lower. It might be the same dollar amount, but the purchasing power might be lower in the future. So something to keep in mind if you're relying on that from a survivor scenario retirement decumulation planning perspective. Now, this can be an extremely difficult topic to talk about, but it's so important when it comes to retirement decumulation planning. You really need to know what happens in a survivor scenario. If you have a spouse or partner, if you have CPP benefits that are close to the max, if you're relying on your old age security, if you've got a pension with a survivor benefit that's under 100%, if you've got high RSP RIF assets, if you've got insurance payouts, all of these factors are extremely important when it comes to retirement decumulation planning and specifically survivor scenarios. Really, if you have a partner or a spouse, you need to have 3 retirement plans. You need to have one with a long and healthy retirement. You need to have one if your partner passes away unexpectedly, and you need to have one if you pass away unexpectedly. You need to have all 3 scenarios set up. That's going to make a very robust retirement plan, retirement decumulation plan, because you're going to know what happens in all of those different situations. Now, that can be extremely easy to do with the right software. So again, if you don't have a retirement decumulation plan in place, I would highly recommend getting one started with advice. It's just $9 a month. You really have no excuse to not get started. It's going to help you create that survivor scenario quite easily just using the AI strategies, and you can see all the impacts to your retirement plan. So again, if you don't have a retirement decumulation plan in place, please get one started. If you have a spouse or partner, please create those survivor scenarios for them and yourself so you can see what happens if one of you were to pass away unexpectedly earlier in retirement. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd love it if you like and subscribe, and we're going to be coming out with new videos on a weekly basis. Thanks again.